the press and the listening and viewing audience to another of the Prime Minister's press conference. This press conference is being carried live on ZIZ Radio, on TV and online, and Win FM online and Win FM Radio. As is customary, the Prime Minister will make a brief statement, after which there will be a question and answer session. I want to invite you to please be brief with your questions. Don't be more than about a minute or so. And please turn off your cell phones or put them on vibrate if you haven't done so. At this point, I want to welcome the Prime Minister of St. Kitts and Nevis, Dr. the Honorable Timothy Harris.
Good afternoon. I want to firstly thank members of the media for coming out to this, our second press conference in the life of the new Team Unity administration. And on that note of thankfulness and gratitude, I want especially to thank the citizens and residents of St. Kitts and Nevis for rescuing the country from the misguided administration that ruled as if we were in a banana republic, unwilling and unable to do what's right for the people. I pledge that the people and residents of St. Kitts and Nevis will forever be in my heart, my mind, and my prayers. And that is why, in spite of many distractions, empty rhetoric, and unkind abuse of the election losers, the people's democratically elected government has remained focused, working honestly, sincerely, and diligently on behalf of the people. The citizens and residents can trust us to be strong, to be firm, and wise. I must remind all that 20 years of a petty autocratic regime and a free-for-all cannot be undone in 2 nor 3 months. Patience and wisdom are still salient virtues. We have, over the last 2 months, accomplished much, and we have received commendation, some from former foes and friends alike. Our tone in government has been different, and as a government we appear as we are, disciplined, thoughtful, and busy doing things for all the people of St. Kitts and Nevis. Some marvel how in less than 2 months we made good on our promise to remove VAT from food, medicine, and funeral expenses. To have proposed it is one thing, but it is another feeling when you hear the consumers praise the government for the significant reduction in the cost of living in our country. Just last Saturday, the Attorney General and I were in Nevis. We entered the supermarket there, and I took the opportunity to mingle and to ask as many of the shoppers, how are things? Are you seeing any evidence of a reduction? 100% responded, 100% had seen the reduction thanks to the hard work of this government. VAT removal, in the view of many, is a major victory for the people of St. Kitts and Nevis. As if that was not work enough, we move post-haste to honor another promise and another commitment. Former sugar workers and their families await with eager expectancy the correction of the injustice done to them way back in 2005. In this regard, without a single penny taken from the National Treasury, we secured EC $16 million grant to right a wrong to the farmer sugar workers. Thanks to the benevolence and the humanitarian spirit of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela. It is now perhaps a little comedy to hear those who refuse to pay and properly compensate former sugar workers 10 years ago now enjoin us to say that these former sugar workers have been wrong and they deserve their fair share. I am happy to report that the committee charged with delivering restorative justice to former sugar workers in St. Kitts and Nevis has been working hard. And Mr. Osbert D'Souza, Permanent Secretary in the Office of the Prime Minister, is heading what is a 17-member team drawn from government, private sector, and labor. I can report that a secretariat will be opened shortly in Bastia to receive reports, concerns, and even recommendations from former sugar workers. To ensure the views and concerns of all are considered, the committee has asked for a bit more time to put forward their final report. I have granted that very reasonable request. I repeat, we in this government will not hurry ourselves, lest we live by the maxim, hurry dog eats rock on. It is tentatively proposed that this committee will complete its report soonest, and that we will make a single payment, single installment, not 3 as were done last time. Single payment to the former sugar workers on or before independence of 2015. So that may well be their Independence Street. I am equally happy to report that the first installment of budgetary support of EC 10 million has been made to the Nevis Island government as was promised and committed. Equally, I want to report that we have transferred administrative responsibility for PEP in Nevis to the Nevis Island administration. This was a long-standing request of the Nevis Island administration. Consistent with our commitment in the Charlestown Accord, we are working amicably with the Nevis Island administration and supporting its mandate to serve the people. We have recently appointed some new boards as it reflects our own interests and shareholding in a number of public sector entities. The directors chosen represent the diversity of our great nation. We will continue to be deliberate and patient as we seek to get individuals to work for government and serve on boards who want to truly serve their country selflessly. Some boards which have already been installed include the St. Kitts Nevis National Bank, the National Trust, Social Security Board, CFBC Board, Physical Development and Planning Board, Z Broadcasting, and in the course of next week, we shall finalize all public sector board. We continue to work diligently to ensure that St. Kitts and Nevis is a safe place to live, to work, to play, to visit, and conduct business. I'm delighted to have here the Acting Commissioner of Police, Stafford Grant, ACP Ian Quealy, and ACP Henderson, who are part of the high echelons of the police force. charged with responsibility to serve and to protect us all. The security forces have taken measures to address the upsurge in violent crime. Some of these public safety measures were enunciated last week in a statement by Acting Commissioner of Police, Mr. Stafford Liebert, and they include, but are not limited to, the following: increasing activity of the security forces in identified hotspots to prevent and detect crime, deployment of the Police Command Center to coordinate the activities of the security forces, implementing traditional and modern community policing methods in our neighborhoods, harnessing new technology to fight crime, including effective use of a modern CCTV system in public spaces. On that note, we have heard many talks about CCTV. We are working hard to move beyond talk to ensure speedy implementation of this particular program. I must remind the country that we all have a part to play in creating a safe and secure environment for prosperity. This, of course, comes from job creation and investment in capital enterprise and in our people. One of the initiatives that allows us to invest in our people and in our infrastructure is the Citizenship by Investment program. This program has been essential to the St. Kitts and Nevis economy. It has become the catalyst for growth and development, and it is integral to our economic success and social stability. The World Bank reports for IMF reports, rather, for 2014 would reflect that this particular program contributes about 36% of government revenue and is somewhere nigh double digits in its contribution to overall GDP. My administration therefore understands the need to make the CBI program more viable. We are committed to expeditiously putting the necessary reforms in place to ensure the long-term economic sustainability of the program. Just last week, the Attorney General and officials of the government visited Park Hyatt site. He reported back to me that there were over 200 employees working hard on the site. I had the opportunity to sit with one of the representatives from Park Hyatt, who was proud to tell me of their progress. He was thrilled to report good news about the site, and I was even more satisfied to hear of it. In response to the serious concerns and actions of both the U.S. and Canadian governments, the former administration commissioned in the fall of 2014 an independent evaluation of the CBI program. This evaluation was done by an internationally acclaimed firm in risk management and in due diligence, IPSA International. We are working hard to ensure that the procedures become more efficient and transparent at the Citizenship by Investment unit. And in response to the serious concerns that you know about, expressed in May 2014 with the U.S. advisory, expressed in November 2014 when Canada withdrew the visa-free access to citizens of St. Kitts and Nevis, the government was urged to act quickly to rescue that particular program. The government, by and large, had gotten into an election mode and had paid very little attention to IPSA's recommendation. I can say today that this government has reviewed the report, and after consultation with a wide cross-section of persons, representing developers, agents, service providers, lawyers, ordinary citizens, and workers, we have decided that it is in the best interests of our country that we implement the 20 recommendations proposed by IPSA International. These will form the basis of our efforts to restructure, reform, and reposition the Citizenship by Investment Program and unit in particular to restore it to its former glory, not just to become known as a program which is the oldest, but a program which is the best and which will become a leader in best practices in such a program. Among the 20 recommendations that have been proposed and which we have accepted are: 1, the rollout of a case management tool to streamline the application management process within the Citizenship by Investment Unit. Changes to the Citizenship Unit's organizational structure to enhance processing capabilities and mitigate risks, and improve risk assessment process, and a review of previously approved applicants. IPSA has now been engaged to assist us in moving forward in carrying out these recommendations, including the immediate implementation of the case management tool. And we are expecting, as a result of that, there will be greater transparency, there will be greater efficiency in the work at the Citizenship by Investment Unit. You will note that we have not accepted our own advice. We brought the professional report, we considered it, and we have started to give the program then by implementing those recommendations from people who know the program. We are giving the CIU and our program a fresh start. We, to our partner governments across the world, and of course, critically important to us, are the governments of the USA, Canada, UK, and the European Union. I pledge my word that no undesirable will be allowed to take advantage of our program. We shall work actively with you to make this happen. We shall not permit nor condone the sale of any diplomatic passport. Our reputation is not for sale for any price. We shall be revoking any passport that was used fraudulently. We will not allow our country's good name to be sullied. We shall also make provisions to revoke the citizenship of any citizen, or should I say, any economic citizen, who within 5 years of the issuance of the certificate of registration commits a serious crime, like an act of terrorism, or appears on an international sanctions list, or on a wanted list of any country or international body, or is named in any scandal that might bring our beloved country into disrepute. Anybody who made false claims or provided us with misleading information at the time of making the application will have their citizenship revoked. We are very serious about this. This is a fresh start to a transparent program. This is a fresh start to resetting our relationship with the USA, with Canada, with the EU, who have all expressed public concern about identity management practices and the participation of illicit actors in the program. We will not just talk the talk, we will walk the walk. To genuine investors, I regret consequential delays you may have experienced as my government paused and took stock of a program which was solid when we inherited it from the former regime. We welcome your interest and investment in our beautiful islands. To the developers like Park Hyatt, etc., who are creating projects that will bring employment and investment to our country, we say you are most welcome. We understand that the Citizenship by Investment Program is a useful source of funding. Legitimate developers who create a positive economic impact on our islands will continue to enjoy the benefits of the program. Tourism is a great source of income for this country. And of course, you are aware that most of these projects are, as it were, involve the tourism industry. And so there is a support base there. We are looking, of course, at other projects. Some projects who, in many ways, we consider to be unbecoming of the signature of an approved project under this program. Some of these, some have described as projects representing building empty boxes, too small for value, overpriced in nature. This government is concerned about such developments, and in time we shall indicate how we intend to move forward to ensure that these projects do not again sully what should be the beautiful landscape of St. Kitts and Nevis. Finally, to the citizens of my beloved St. Kitts and Nevis, I can assure you that not only are we working to protect and safeguard your travel rights to more than 140 countries, but we are adding to the list. The Minister of Foreign Affairs, Mark Brantley, announced recently that he had brought to successful conclusion the visa-free entry for our citizens to Brazil. We are in consultation with other countries, and the success of these talks will be announced in due course. This administration is determined to restore the world's trust and confidence in our program. This is our number one priority. The purpose of the program, when originally established, was to attract investors of good character. I underscore good character, to make a substantial contribution to the development of the Federation. It is regrettable that the vulgar and lax approach of the former administration resulted in the program becoming embroiled with illicit actors. St. Kitts and Nevis will move forward. Our program will not be derailed, nor will we allow anyone to hijack it for his or her personal gain. We are working diligently to ensure it is safeguarded for all of our people. The needs and desires of all the stakeholders, be they foreign governments, investors, developers, and our citizens and residents, are being addressed. You will see further improvements in the process in the coming weeks, and I shall be working energetically to ensure that all the different needs are met without in any way compromising our security or sovereignty. The St. Kitts and Nevis Citizenship by Investment Program is back on track, and we are open for business and applications from genuine investors of good character without compromising the integrity of the program. With these reforms, one of the pillars of our economic future in St. Kitts and Nevis will now be stronger than ever. And we intend, in the not-too-distant future, by the middle of this year, to bring all stakeholders together in a major conference addressing best practices and good governance in the CBI program. I want to pause at this point and to give representatives of the media an opportunity for questions. Thank you. Ms. Daniel, could we have the media reps identify themselves, and then to pose their questions if and as necessary?
Good afternoon, Alicia Daniel Blake. I think it's the Nevis Information Service. Now, Prime Minister, you mentioned that the government has appointed new boards for statutory companies and other entities controlled by government, including National Bank and National Bank Trust. It is understood that the trust will appoint councillors to the SIDF board. What can you tell us about the SIDF?
The SIDF, acronym for the Sugar Industry Diversification Foundation, was formed sometime around 2006, thereabout, by the then government, and it was intended, as originally contemplated, to be an entity which would contribute to the diversification of the economy, particularly in the context of the closure of the sugar industry. It was intended to bring hope, new economic opportunities to the former sugar workers principally. That never realized. We could hardly point to one sugar worker, former sugar worker, who has received anything substantial directly from the SIDF. The SIDF, we know, during the campaign referred to it as a cash cow, a slush fund, because there was no accountability with respect to that particular foundation. And if you were to go to the IMF reports, at least for the year 2014, they would say that they had received promises from the former administration acknowledging that there was an absence of accountability and that they were prepared to make available financial statements online for all the world to see. No such promise by the former government has been met. And the last time we have seen audited financial statement for such an important entity would have been those relating to the financial year 2011. After that, the shop closed. No one was to see, because the SIDF had become the private property de facto of the leader of the country. We have been able, since taking office, to have gone through the maze of documents, and we have some information which I could report in relation to the SIDF, bearing in mind that these are not necessarily audited financial information. The preliminary results would indicate that from December 2007 to December 2014, the SIDF received aggregate income of $1.47 billion. The Spendthrift administration, just gone out, supported expenditure from that fund of $1.26 billion. The SIDF, up to 2014, had received aggregate income of $1.4 billion. At the end of that said reporting period, they had expended out of that fund $1.26 billion. The foundation, in a very real sense, operated in the eyes of many as a slush fund and an alternative government for the ex-regime. The fund in which people believe there are billions of dollars or billions of dollars now has a paltry $200 million thereabout available. Against these cash resources now available are commitments against that fund of EC $126 million in what has been described as one-off commitments, and it has ongoing commitments of approximately $75 million, including the commitments to sustain the PEP program. So $200 million available in cash and near cash assets, and against that are ongoing commitments, 75 plus another 126 million already committed to other entities. You add that, you see we're not talking about many things left. That is the situation that we have met. And it is therefore interesting that the advice of the IMF about how you would utilize the windfall always fell on the deaf ears of the government. The government, almost in an insane act of desperation, figured that the money either shouldn't last or the new government must not have any access to resources, and it went on a spending fantasy. And so, for example, in 2013, the government spent out of that fund $419.4 million aggregate expenditure. The income for 2013 into the foundation was $337.5 million. The government that the people just rejected on February 16th was prepared to bankrupt the fund if that trajectory would have continued. They had $337 million inflowed into the foundation. They were prepared to spend $419, overspent $81.9 million in 2013. 2014, a similar pattern of abnormal expenditure relative to the inflows into the foundation become part of the pattern as desperate men lose focus and considered that they could buy their way back into the offices of government. Thankfully, wisdom prevailed, and they are where they are, and the people are now better for it.
Les Roy Williams, myview.com. Good afternoon, Mr. Prime Minister.
Good afternoon.
The conundrum of crime, in particular gun crime, has been plaguing the Federation for some time now. I know that you outlined some strategies, but basically they are all strategies and approaches to tackling the problem. Do you have any new approaches or strategies to address antisocial behaviors in our society?
I want to thank you for that question. I would want to invite the Commissioner or the ACP with responsibility for crime to come and address, because they are, in fact, part of the crime fighting team that is there for the country. But for my own part, I would say that some of these initiatives are certainly not new. What will be new is that we will now get implementation. The program with respect to the CCTV, for example, was one about which there were much talk. Very little happened. When we reach into government, less than 20% coverage with respect to those important pieces of technology that could have assisted in crime detection, etc. even while the people in Half Moon were crying out against break-in and against the upsurge in criminal activity, the ex-regime had equipment and cameras available and could not get them properly sighted and functional. What will be different is that we bring fresh start to the initiatives that matter to the people. And people will see the results because we will talk less about what we are doing and people will see more of what is happening. On that note, I want to invite the acting commissioner to come speak to you. And I would say one last thing from the senior policy level. We intend to adopt a number of pieces of legislation that lay dormant and which we believe are critical in the fight against crime, which must be consistent, it must be bold, and it must produce results. And so there are two bits of legislation relating to the Defense Council and other areas that we consider important, and we shall take those to get the endorsement of Cabinet and have that implemented so that we will bring all the resources, people resources, legislative resources, intelligence resources, technology resources in the fight against crime in a manner it has not been seen before. And on that note, I want to say, in this very press conference room, and I hope I'm not being premature, we have at least two specialist persons here in crime. They come with outstanding international credentials, David and Steve. And they are here in the back there to assist us in this fight against crime and criminals. I want to thank the Commissioner acting, the Assistant Commissioners who are here, and all in the rank and file for the support that they are giving to these two gentlemen, and I gather there's a third person on ground. Or come in, Commissioner.
He's even off island.
Off island. Who is part of the additional supplementary support that we have brought to law enforcement. We have full confidence in the credentials of the acting commissioner and the assistant commissioners of police. We could hardly find a better match in terms of their long stint at training. And I'm sure Quealy is no less than the best everywhere, and so is Henderson. But equally we appreciate that there's a need. If we are going to take an all-out fight against the upsurge in criminal activity and homicides in particular, that all resources at home and abroad must be brought into this fight. On that note, I welcome those from overseas, David and Steve now, who has been providing us with some support in this regard. Acting Commissioner.
Thank you for that question. I would just say to the public that some of the language that you hear will be similar to what you hear, but the approach will be a bit different in some areas. For example, increasing manpower in the hotspots. That is something we hear. But I wish to say here that one of the foremost approach that we are making, we are strengthening our effort as a team. And it is the teamwork leading from within the police force that we expect that we will do better over the time to come. And that is why, again, I recognize here ACP Quealy, ACP Henderson, and soon again we will have an ACP for Nevis, because the ACP Nevis has just retired. I also wish to say that technology, and I'm repeating some of what the Prime Minister said, is one of the areas that we'll pay great attention to. I believe in one area, and without naming it, Prime Minister's gone a bit there, we are seeing improvement, and we are now very close to that 100% in one area that we need to go. And that has been accomplished within the past 2 weeks, because I must thank the Prime Minister, who has given us a directive and has insisted that we get the cameras in certain areas functioning. And I will tell you, within the past 2 weeks, we have increased our service to that area. I also wish to say that we have received great cooperation, I would say excellent cooperation from the general public. And I would say within about less than 10 days that we will make some further announcement to demonstrate that we have made progress. And I say that within about 10 days, and you will realize that I want to say to the public, continue sharing the information with the public, continue. I believe within 10 days, this federation will recognize that we have made progress. And this comes about because of cooperation. I want to also say that our approach, we are strengthening our relationship with our regional partners. I want to stretch that regional. And naturally, we are receiving great help from our international partners. And with the combination of those, and we who are now in command here of the police force, working as a team, I believe we can achieve a lot more. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Commissioner, and I'm happy that you're reporting already in a short frame some progress in certain areas.
Ken Richards, Win FM. Prime Minister, I'll ask all my questions right away. So, the Labour Party, the opposition Labour Party is promising massive protests on Monday, Labour Day. They're delivering fighting talk. However, they have the right to protest peacefully. What is going to be the government's response to the fighting talk? When is Parliament meeting, and what is on the agenda? The opposition continues to make allegations of victimizations of public officers. How does the government respond? And in terms of the VAT, what sort of impact is that having on government coffers?
Thanks. The fighting talk, as you put it, from the Labour losing platform is not new. We heard that old talk during the campaign. And how did the citizens and residents responded? A massive rejection of that fighting talk, that aggressive tone, that divisiveness in the politics. And so we in this government are not going to be distracted by the fighting talk. It will come to nothing. The answer to the fighting talk was delivered on the 16th of February, and the election losers can't deal with the response of the people. It is the people who will respond to them, strong, determined, and consistent with their message that we have a fresh start in Team Unity, and they will stick with Team Unity all the way for the next 5 years. Because we are doing what the people want, attempting to unite the country, attempting to advance the country, attempting to bring love and peace where we are in an atmosphere of heightened criminality. You would want to believe that a former government who had the mandate to maintain peace and stability would now have the good sense to ensure that no more will there be fighting talk. For the fight is over. We have won. The people have won. And the people want their country to settle down. Settle down. And so if they are interested in continuing the old talk, not mindful of the fact that they have been rejected, that is a sad matter for them and not for us. With respect to the matter of the Parliament, I am pleased to say that this government will convene Parliament nigh a couple of weeks. The exact date will be announced appropriately, as has been the tradition with respect to the convening of the Parliament. And we will comply with the law with respect to the notice that ought to be given with respect to the Parliament. We are looking forward to that lovely day when we symbolize and usher in the fresh start in parliamentary proceedings in St. Kitts and Nevis once again. And so we will give our people far and near ample time to tune in and to hear about the policies and programs of the government, which only on the 16th of February they gave the mandate of service. In relation to the impact of that, I would say to you that it's still too soon to really adjudge. April, for example, is not yet ended. I couldn't even do a comparative between last April and this April. In due time, as the fiscal measure percolate, as it were, through the economy, in the fullness of time, we will see the impact. One thing we do know, that the policy of low taxation, the policy of putting more money in the pockets of the people, have never failed to resuscitate and to, as it were, develop and incentivize economic activity in a country. And so, when we have the figures, we will make them available to the people. We started this removal, I think it was on the 7th of April. Ask me in May, after the fighting talk and Labor Day, I will then be in a better position to advise you. But I take great comfort and joy, though, going through the street just last Thursday it was, when I was making my way to Team Unity headquarters. We are still open for business there. So those who want to move from the fighting talk to the peace talk can come to 4th Street to Team Unity's head office and be registered for membership. But while going there, a young lady stopped the vehicle in which I was driving. And she said, "Is that the Prime Minister there?" The officer said, "Yes." He said, and she tried to engage. He said, "Do you have to?" He said, No, I want to thank him." Young lady, vibrant, looks below 20. She wanted to engage me. There was a second death in the family. And she wanted to report to the Prime Minister that they had experienced a substantial reduction in the funeral expenses. And when she pointed out to the funeral undertaker, his advice to her was to go thank the Prime Minister. I say, in turn, go thank all the people of St. Kitts and Nevis who voted on the 16th of February for a reduction in VAT. That is why it happened.
Stanford Conway, SKN Vibes. Good afternoon, Mr. Prime Minister. You spoke about projects and programs. What I need to know, it is being said that whenever there is a change of government, you would find, or you may find, that there would be some of the projects and programs will be continued. But what I'm looking at, you did speak about the continuation of certain projects here with developers. But my question is, what the previous administration started when they talked about the building of houses, I want to know if there will be a continuation of what they started there. Secondly, it is said that there are two categories of workers in the public service: the political directorate and the permanent pensionable establishment. just like the man in the street who I would want to inform through readership, could you tell us, in the political directorate, mainly speaking about the ambassadors, I'm talking about the diplomatic corps, could you say how many of them had tendered their resignations and how many of them, their services had been retained? And at the same time, coming to the permanent pensionable establishment, it is being said that a number of permanent secretaries are no longer with this new administration. Could you speak to those two?
Thank you very much. The Attorney General has been spearheading the transition efforts of this government. I want to say that in our approach to this, we have been open, we have been clear. The political directorate of the last administration must necessarily resign. We made that publicly clear, and we stand by it. They must free the hand of the government to determine, one, if we wish them to continue, and they must free the hand of the government to determine how and by whom its policies and programs will be implemented. And so we made that call publicly, not in any bowly cup, as my grandmother would say, so that all would listen and pay heed. A number of them had the decency to respond positively. I got a letter, for example, from Ambassador Wendell Lawrence, and a certain section of it says, by and large, I'm paraphrasing, I believe the government deserved the opportunity to make a determination about whether or not it wishes to have my service or some other person to continue. And we had a number of persons like that. Those who, for example, went after some moral suasion from the St. Kitts and Nevis National Bank Board. And I want to thank them because it was the decent and honorable thing to do. There were those who, for example, on ZIZ Broadcasting Board, like Peter Jenkins, who had been at the center of political controversy with respect to the boundaries, who for the life of people couldn't understand. Why would Peter Jenkins want to stand in the way of a new administration, having regard to the controversy that he left in the wake of his presiding over the matter of the boundaries? And he hesitated. But ultimately, the government will get its way because we are the people's government and we have the mandate. I am happy to report, even if it's belated, Peter Jenkins seemed to have gotten the message. And he has subsequently, albeit belatedly, resigned. So it has been a mixed bag. We have since that time been able to have had meetings, and even before that. And we now have a new board to be announced next week with respect to that broadcasting entity. So some said we have been slow, but sometimes patience is a virtue. You can't fault a government for giving people a chance to deal with a defeat, even if it is an electoral one, for them to reconstruct their sense of rationality and to respond rationally to a reasonable request. And so we have had some who wanted to be stumbling block. We have asked them to go, and where they have sauntered beyond reasonable time, we have now acted. And that is why in all of these boards that we have announced, National Bank, we have gone past them. National Trust, we now have our board. Social Security, we have our board. ZIZ Broadcasting, we have our board. And we could go on and on. Ultimately, the will of the people must stand in a democracy. I want to thank all the people on this board for having given service, and we may weigh them in due time, the quality of their service, but I want to thank them for at least attempting to make a contribution to the development of St. Kitts and Nevis. And it was in part out of that recognition that all we have are ourselves. And we in Team Unity, and in particular Minister Patrice Liebert, when he was a popular radio personality, would say a gentler, kinder society. In keeping with that gentler, kinder society, we ask people, let decency in you be exhibited. So that as far as the political directorate, Delano Bart, he has basically, I think he has gone. The Prime Minister's, the mother of the Prime Minister's children, she was the most difficult one in Dubai. Hopefully by now she has gone, because we have taken steps in light of the resistance she posed to the order and the clear direction from the permanent secretary that her diplomatic assignment had been determined and that she ought not to continue to function as if she was a representative of the government in Dubai. She had continued according to the reports. I think that that situation is now satisfactorily resolved. The other area, Washington, Jacinth Henry Martin, she has moved on. We thank her for her service and wish her well in her future endeavors. We had difficulties with the SIDF, a company with which Michael Martin had been associated, had basically by and large been non-cooperative with respect to this government. When we took over, in a manner of speaking, the Directorate of the National Trust, we have sought to remove that stumbling block. And so a new secretary is now being appointed to the SIDF. With respect to the civil service, I will invite the Attorney General, a man versed in law and in natural justice, to address that question on behalf of the government.
Thank you, Prime Minister. The permanent pensionable establishment, as you describe it, is one which has security of tenure. When once appointed, you come under the control of the Public Service Commission, who will monitor, manage the public service. For the most part, no one has been terminated from the permanent public pensionable establishment. There have been one or two cases where senior public servants have been asked to take leave while their terms of service, their work, is evaluated, and ultimately some will move on to retirement as they are past the age of retirement. By and large, the public service has performed to date. There have been some instances where people have been obdurate and difficult, and in so doing, they have been put on leave as well. Some cases, very few, where some professionals have been on contract. Those contracts, if the contractees have been difficult, they have been determined as well. Generally speaking, the public service continues to function, and we hope that they will serve the people of St. Kitts and Nevis to the fullest and in the best traditions possible. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Adri. And of course, you know very well some who were the political appointees. We had, for example, the candidate who ran against the Premier Nevis. He had some contractual arrangement, hardly seen, after the government change and so on. But he has submitted his resignation. I want to thank him. There were other appointees from Nevis. Some stayed until the end of their contract. Delegates, for example, they did nothing. Let the contract come to an end since the time was just over the horizon. Decent thing to do. And yet they accuse us of victimizing, of having agenda. And we have been patient in allowing people to do the decent thing. That gentleman lawyer, candidate in Nevis, who had a special contract down here, once he recognized that a new government was in, he tendered his resignation. I want to thank those people. Those are people with conscience. The difficulties when people knowing who they are, that they are part of the political operative, an operation of a regime, want to delay and create trouble for the new government. And we have a number of people who we found out were being paid. You never saw them one day doing any productive work in government. But they were on the public payroll, getting $7,000, $10,000, this $1,000 every day to do political work. There's one gentleman whose surname is with an M, and that gentleman was being paid nice $7,000 every month by the ex-regime. And what was his job description? To listen to voices, to listen to Sugar City Rock, and to record who was calling in. Well, is that normal government work in a democratic society for which a man could be hired to monitor ordinary citizens in the pursuit of their constitutional right to free expression? We say no. And this week, the Attorney General asked that he do the right thing and tender his resignation. And if he doesn't tender his resignation, we will pursue recovery of those monies that we think were not appropriately spent in furtherance of good governance agenda. These are some of the real challenges that we have met as a new government. 20 years of an administration that had developed a dictatorial posture in relation to administration, that it could do no wrong. You go through the files and you look at who are being paid. Why, for example, was Hazel Ross Robinson being paid thousands of dollars each month? Where in this building is her office? What services was she being provided? Pep talk to the outgoing Prime Minister? We don't know. We don't know. And we are saying to these people, do the honorable thing. Do the honorable thing. That's all we're asking. That's all we want. We want a happy society, happy people. That's what we're about. Yes?
He asked a question about housing.
Oh, sorry, housing. Yes, the housing program will continue. We said that in the campaign, and we certainly are committed to providing appropriate shelter to the people of St. Kitts and Nevis. There's a high demand for housing, and Team Unity will, in fact, respond to that in a very quick way and in a responsible way.
JD Keynes, good afternoon from ZIZ Radio and Television, ZIZ Broadcasting. Like my media colleagues, I will ask all my questions at once. Firstly, Prime Minister, in recent discussions with former sugar industry workers, I learned that several persons are now claiming to have been involved with the sugar industry, claiming that they too were employees. So simply put, what I want to know is, do we have enough money to pay the former SSMC workers? And a follow-up to that would be, with an independence proposed deadline in place for the payment of the former sugar industry workers, based on what you just said, what would be the role or the purpose of the secretariat that will be opened? So that's a follow-up question. Also, you referenced the IPSA, I think it is, report and the recommendations that were made within it, noting that the unity government will implement all of those recommendations. Were any of those recommendations similar to those proposed by Team Unity in the lead-up to the recent elections? And finally, Pepin Nevis has been transferred to the NIA, according to you. How soon will we see further restructuring of that program, as it has been something that your government has lobbied for quite some time? Thank you.
Thank you very much for these questions. With respect to the amounts that we paid, we have, as it were, a ceiling. $16 million will be paid out, and the technocrats will determine the distribution based on the information that they are harnessing. The purpose of the Secretariat is to do exactly what you said, to collect the information from all people, because there are, as you said, hundreds of people, thousands, I don't know, who have claimed to be aggrieved. And they need to go to some place where those issues can be sorted out. So the Secretariat then will be the place to which they go for information, for determination, whether or not they qualify, for providing evidence of their work, etc., etc. They need a place around which those activities can be properly conducted, and the Secretariat then will be set up to do that. In terms of the IPSA recommendations, certainly we had said that the program needed reform and restructuring. The report which the ex-regime did indicate that. They were more specific in terms of they identified critical areas, and through 20 recommendations basically said, if you do this, you can redeem and restore confidence into that program. You can deal with laxities of control. In control, you could deal with the issue of tardiness, etc., etc. So I would say they are in sync with the broad thrust of our position while in opposition. Of course, IPSA is a risk management expert group, and so you have to listen to advice coming independently as it did from this group, and we have adopted them. But I want to say to you that IPSA, in terms of its methodology, met with a broad cross-section of persons, developers, agents, service providers in the industry. And I suspect that some of the ideas it adopted formally would have come as a result of the consultations it would have conducted with some of the players. So it represents that, and they again bring in their expertise, because they're, for example, involved in the Antigua program, they're involved in Dominica, etc. They've brought that to bear in terms of the kinds of recommendations that they think are workable. With respect to the PEP in Nevis, we have transferred that particular program, and I think it is 400 plus workers now to the Nevis Island administration. And we did say in the campaign that the PEP program was not being implemented in a way that would enhance people's skills over long term, whether it were the technical skills or the social skills. You go on workplaces and you hardly see changes. Still bad words. Still people figure they can work from 7 or from 8 or from 9 to 10. We are saying that any sensible program that will take our people from point A, even if it is only to point B, must make a positive difference in production in the country, in productivity in the country, in the skill sets available in the country. And one of the adverse impact of PEP is that in our, what we call AVEC, and what's the other one? Project Strong, Youth Skills, those programs have lost entrance because the young people now, rather than going into institutions where they can hone appropriate skills, say, no, 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 a quick money here to be made, and I don't even have to show up to work. Just get your name on the program. These are the inadequacies of the PEP program, which my government will not countenance. We pledge that people will have work, but they must work for their money. We pledge that those who are working, doing little work, that they must do more to represent a fair day's earning. And over time, we will ensure that out of PEP come a strong skill base. So for example, as we engage in construction, we need to see PEP programs that produce more quality carpenters and masons and painters. That is what a proper training program should do. Address the technical and technological deficiencies in the skill sets available for the people of St. Kitts and Nevis. To have over 3,000 people participating in PEP that really ain't doing much for them is not the most productive use of the resources of the country. We love the workers on the PEP program. We know the amount those, large number of them, the education system may have failed them. Laxity in parental guidance may have created circumstances where they could not ordinarily earn. We want them though to leave these programs enhanced as better productive citizens, and we will do what we can over time to take them there. PEP then, for the foreseeable future, will be with us, but it will be restructured. There's a challenge to its sustainability, because when I mentioned, for example, that it costs in $130 million, small country like ours, $130 million plus already spent on PEP. You wonder, could there have been better application of the resources? And the answers, when you look to the report, says yes, people could have been put to better areas of development, and their skill base could have been more enhanced. I hope that helped you.
It helps. I'm sorry, just 1 second. It helps, and forgive me, but I just wanted to get an idea, a sense of how soon, because we understand the passion and we agree, but how soon will we see the restructuring? I understand it will stay with the government for the time, but how soon will it be restructured?
Yes. Well, basically, we have started some of that restructuring already. We have started, for example, to say to supervisors, people who do not work should not be paid. So they must come on the job. They must have a positive attitude to what they're doing. And they must not believe that the government money is there to be given away, as the last regime felt it was. They must come understanding fair day's work for fair day's pay. That is an important lesson for young people, you know, especially our at-risk youth. Because unless they are disciplined enough to accept responsibility, we are going to go down dangerous short corners, which they will take to sustain their particular lifestyles. So that is one. And as I said, the problem in having in St. Kitts PEP managed by the government, and at the other side, PEP in private hands, we have dealt with that. So the NIA now controls that and should be able, working as part of a coordinated policy, to do the restructuring and reform. But again, we are doing it in a slow, methodical way so that, you know, people have fair opportunities. After all, we did say fair share.
We take one more question.
Carol Philip Tudor of the Democrats. Mr. Prime Minister, good afternoon. The crime situation in St. Kitts and Nevis has continued unabated. In this room this afternoon, there are 3 able-bodied men in the form of Stafford, Quealy, and Henderson, and I'm sure there are more. How soon will the role of Commissioner of Police not be an acting role? I think, with all due respect, Mr. Prime Minister, it is a serious role that ought not to have an acting Prime Minister for much longer. So I wonder, not an acting Prime Minister, that would be too much.
That would be a wrong
That would be much too much. An acting Commissioner of Police, sorry, for much longer. And while we're at it, if it's not against the security apparatus, could we get the surnames of both Steve and David who are here? A second question, the revocation of passports, either by people who have given false information to attain one, or persons who, having attained passports, have brought the St. Kitts and Nevis passports into disrepute. How soon will the revocation begin? And yes, IDF, it is a bit shocking to hear the amounts that are there. I think the number you said, not the expenditure and the amount received, but what is there, about 200 million, with a commitment against it, at least one for 126 million and another for 75 million for the PEP program. It seems to me, PEP and some other small things. It seems to me that the government has started in the hole already. Whilst you were in opposition, you continued to say that there was squandermania in the government. Now that you are in the government and Prime Minister, have you any specific evidence of that squandermania?
I want to thank you. The issue of the leader, or the matter of the leadership of the police force, is an important one. And of course, it is a security matter. And therefore, it's not a matter which at this point in time, the administration is prepared to have a major discussion about. Safe to say that a commissioner just left in February. There is no crisis of leadership in the Royal St. Kitts and Nevis Police Force. I am satisfied of that. The high command of the force, they who are here are satisfied. What we need to build in the force is team. A team. The acting commissioner spoke to that. And in building the team, we will need for a while the solid experience of those who have served before. Mr. Stafford Lyverd perhaps is one of the longest serving in the force at this time. His experience will be important to stabilize a force which for quite a while had felt victimized by the past leadership. Let us be clear about that. That force had gone through a period where it felt it was a decidedly one-man show, one sheriff in town. And when there were successes, those successes were appropriated by the sheriff. And when there were failures, the rest of the police force had been condemned. When I met with the High Command, I heard ACP Henderson, for example, said, let us build the team. Let us work as a team. Let us bring to bear the ample skill sets within our force, the experience that is there, and we can do more. So basically, for me, as a Minister of National Security and Prime Minister, I am not too concerned with the position or rank. I am concerned that we have a team to deliver results. Again, the concern is not with the rank. The concern is the delivery of results with respect to the safety of the people of St. Kitts and Nevis. And I have confidence in this team that with Stafford Liebert, with Ian Quealy, and with Vaughn Henderson, and all the others who are here, I think, Mitchell, what's your rank, sir? Superintendent Mitchell, that they, along with all the others, at all levels of the force, including those out there in Tabernacle, Sandy Point, Keon, corporal, sarge, constables, if they work as a team, they will deliver. And I say, let us give this team a chance. Too often the response had been, bring somebody new to the force. And the problem, structural in nature within the force, remained unresolved. This is a cooling off period where the team themselves will reflect soberly on their strengths and weaknesses and working together as a team in unity. They will deliver a police of which all citizens and St. Kitts and Nevis can be proud. So I'm wishing them well, but of course, like everything else, we monitor and we see. But at this time, there is no crisis, real or perceived, in the leadership of the force. I want, because you had asked, for the names of those who are here providing support to us at this time. We have David King. David, would you mind a little standing so that the press will get to see you? David brings a wealth, thank you, of experience, having served in particular with the Trinidad Police in very difficult circumstance relating to hostage-taking activities in relation to gang violence, and his record there has been superlative with respect to the results. So we believe that his knowledge and his support is an asset. And I should say that the recommendation from him came from the police themselves. We have with us an equally fine police expert, Stephen France, Sergeant. Do I have it right? You do say yes. All right. Thank you very much. I came close, I believe. Could you stand, please? We want to thank these gentlemen, and could we, on behalf of the country, give them a round of applause for coming here and agreeing to assist us at a time of difficulty. Yes, did I cover your questions? Thank you. In relation to that. Oh, the squandering. Yes, we said that, and I believe what we said was happening with respect to what I call the shadow government. We always had the formal government with a budget system. But really, I remember one time it was Ken who interviewed me. And I was saying there was a dispute between what I was saying and the financial secretary. And I recall saying to him, but the real money doesn't have anything to do with the financial secretary. She's looking at her book. Terence Crossman over there is looking at a different set of books. So the roads are coming from SIDF. The new school will come from SIDF. If the police needs some vehicle, it will come from SIDF. SIDF was like the real government doing things. SIDF, according to the preliminary figures, spent $1.3 billion in a few years. And SIDF had received just about $1.4 billion. That was the cash cow. And SIDF did many things some badly, some very well. SIDF was a creature of Denzel Douglas, a creature steeped in lack of accountability, which year after year we criticize. How come 4 years after, you can't know what happened in 2012 by way of an audited report with respect to the operations for that year? And we don't know about 2013, and we don't know about 2014, and we in 2015. That is the lack of accountability that was there. And talking too about SIDF. SIDF was a place where the friends of Douglas went and stayed. Look who are the counselors. My good teacher, Joseph Edmead, who I have fondest reflection on. But what was his call to fame? What was Hermia Morton's call for fame? Who else did we have there? And you go through Rosalind Hazel and all of these very good citizens managing substantial sums of money. And can we say, from their experience, they would have been our first choice? An important question to ask. First choice, second, third, or even last choice? I don't know. What I do know, and just today I asked for some figures. Who are the people getting some monies out of the SIDF? And I was astounded to learn that one such person who benefited from the SIDF was Ilana Bart. While serving as an ambassador to this, our beloved country, Ilana Bart and his company and our associates were able to do legal work. So imagine you put a man all the way in New York, put him in an expensive house or condo, giving him free car, free driver, free food, free drinks and wine. And you're giving him a big salary. And yet while in public service, that same individual could then still be making money at the expense of the taxpayers of St. Kitts and Nevis. Ilana Bart, for example, submitted in February 9th an invoice seeking monies US $134,550,000. Invoice of Delano F. Bart QC. I hereby, he's writing to the ex-Prime Minister, I hereby request payment of my legal fees for work done. And he gives some case number. This was a case to do with the Honorable Sam Conda and Sean Richards versus the Right Honorable Denzel Llewellyn Douglas. And he was claiming from the purse $134,550. Did he take a leave of absence with respect to his ambassadorial duties? So while his own private interest was being enhanced to the provision of legal fees, what was happening to those duties, important duties at the UN? Question I ask, but I don't have the answer. And then when I look to the SIDF, I see in relation to the Ilana Bart, and this is information provided to me, that on the 12th of September 2013, Ilana Bart got a check of $1,779,000 from the SIDF. This is what has been provided to me by the CEO at SIDF. On 16th of July 2013, recipient of funds Ilana Bart and Company. Purpose, legal services rendered, resale and purchase of Nevis Airport. Resale and purchase of Nevis Airport, $126,389.25. For the year 2014, according to this report, Delano Bart and Company receive $2,201,635.80. Is somebody getting the rhythm? Is somebody understanding the failures of public policy when a functionary in the government, in receipt of public funds, could also offer private services to entities over which the government had control and ownership? Could this have happened in the UK? Could this have happened in Trinidad without the director of audit providing this information somewhere? Because in Trinidad system, if I recall, when I was a student doing my master's, if you are in the government and you're doing private work for the government, there have to be a disclosure. Well, how come we didn't know? In 2013, our ambassador at large get $1.8 million from the SIDF. And in St. Kitts and Nevis, there is an abundance of lawyers. Some of them parents went through a hard time putting up their houses and land to see them through the fulfillment of their legal education. And there are so many of them skunting for a job. Couldn't the SIDF be advised to take on a lawyer so that this thing to do with the sale and the purchase of Nevis Airport, that could have given them more than enough for 1 year? And you go on and on. Delano Bart and Company traveled to South Carolina via Miami. I don't know what the SIDF had up there. Legal services resale by SIDF of its shares, and BRL's the indebtedness to the SIDF, $1.16 million. What was happening to our country? And you begin to understand too why some of these accounts would not be subjected to audit. Why since 2011, no audit statements were made available. Because somebody's piercing eyes may have been able to pick up some of these things. Legal services loan agreements between SIDF and NHC, $351,000 in legal fees. And there is an office providing legal support to the government. I wonder why. Only asking a question. Couldn't the S3 in the office of the Attorney General provide that service for free? Couldn't one of our lawyers be put on the payroll of SIDF even at 10,000 EC per month? It would be 120,000. But councillors and other officials allow $315,900 to be paid. Loan agreement, SIDF and TDC. Look at that. These are things which I have a difficulty as a citizen reconciling. And that is the same thing, you know. When I went into McKnight and the brothers and sisters were saying, nothing now go on for you. You compare with their message about success. St. Kitts is #1. Most deposits in the bank. Whose deposit, we ask? Was it Delano's? Was it Alzira Mogadam? Was it those at Christophe Harbour? Was it monies in escrow account? Because it wasn't for the brothers and sisters in McKnight, in George Street, at Neverson Street. It wasn't somebody else. Few persons being accorded safe passage facilitated by the full extent of the public sector, government, and government-controlled entities, and other people, they can't buy bread. Something was not right. And that is why we pledge, and I pledge, a fair share for all.
Prime Minister, you want to wrap up now, or you want to have one more question from Ken Richards? We've gone quite a bit, Ken.
Just a quick follow-up on the crime question. To what extent has the new administration learned not to make crime a political football? Because in opposition, some Team Unity officials were blaming the administration for the crime situation. Today, as we speak, St. Kitts and Nevis has 14 homicides. Antigua has none. Dominica has 3. St. Lucia has 6. Have lessons been learned about making crime a political football?
Well, I would say that we have never made crime a political football. Crime was and will continue to be a matter of concerns for the citizens of St. Kitts and Nevis, as it is wherever there has been an upsurge in any country. We have asked the important questions of the administration then, and of the security forces. We continue to ask ourselves, what more can we do, and what better can we do to deliver the safety? Because, yes, crime is there, and some crime will always be there. Nature of society. The problem is when it is out of control. It has become to unmanageable levels. And so we do not have the quick fix in relation to it, but we are going to be consistent in taking those measures that we are advised could best lead to significant improvement in the situation. And I want our citizens, when they feel unsafe, to say they feel unsafe. Don't have a problem with that. Equally, I want them, when they see the results which our acting commissioner made reference will flow, that they commend the police, that they give them their support. Equally, I say that this fight against crime is not just a fight for this government, and we will fight it robustly as if it was singularly our own, while acknowledge that the parent in the home has an equal responsibility to ensure that crimes and the proceeds of crime not entering into their home, into their neighborhood, into their community. Equally, we say that the social services must be responsive to at-risk people in our community. So programs must come that will help them, that will instill hope and a sense of awareness and pride and self-esteem into our people. Equally, we say that since all our people are not quote-unquote bookish, some have gifted hands, that the society and those who are purveying education must purvey the best quality of technical and vocational education to help our people. Equally, we say that the media can play a very deliberate and constructive role in getting our society to better understand the broad dimensions of crime, that it is a complex, multi-dimensional matter, and there is no single fix that will deal with it. And so how you report crime is an important matter. If you make stars out of the murderers, then maybe inadvertently you are not helping in the fight against crime. So the media has a major responsibility in the way it relates to crime. And of course the police. They have accepted responsibility. They have been charged with that responsibility. And I think that they will deliver. And when we see them delivering, we must be prepared to ask that they be given all the rewards within the measure of the state and the society to do. I want to thank those private individuals and entities that have been providing support, vehicles, and other forms of assistance to the police, because I believe by that donation and assistance, they are saying we are enjoined in the fight against crime. And we can't leave it to the government alone. Neither can we leave the police to function in a state of want. And so I say thanks on behalf of the citizens. I thank those private providers of security services, because that has been an important supplement to the provision of security services, and we want them to continue. I want to thank those persons who are doing what they can to protect their own individual property, because each citizen has a responsibility to protect himself or herself from crime and criminal activity. Lighting your house, locking your doors, locking your car doors, all these things are important. Knowing who the strangers are in your community, knowing with whom they associate, being ready, willing, and able to assist the police, because many persons see crime, but they now say nothing. And we are saying that that attitude is not a helpful one if all of us are enjoying in this battle against crime. So I invite the people to cooperate more fully with the police, give them the information. And we are prepared to provide adequate, what we call these things, witness protection support for those who come forward and give the police important information that would lead to the arrest and successful prosecution of those who are committing crime. If we have to put you in Russia to protect you, we will do that. So when you ask, how far will Team Unity go to keep the citizens and residents safe, my response is all the way within the capacity and the capability of the state to so do. Thank you very much for coming, and we look forward to another engagement with you at such time as you may consider desirable. Thank you very much again.
ZIZ Radio, entertaining the nation, enjoyed by the world.